It's really great to be here with you. Those of you that, of course, around this country make sure that try to make sure that the roads are uncongested, or decreased in congestion, the bridges are stable, and I know what a tough job that is. I really appreciate the Secretary Gottlieb. I think he's still on the Hill. He's testifying before the subcommittee, talking about freight mobility and the importance of it. So again, I appreciate when you folks come here to Washington and participate and help educate not only members of the committee, but also the members that come from your respective states. Again, Bud does a great job here in Washington, has done a great job of representing you, but he just strengthened his right arm by bringing Jim Timon on board. Jim is, as you know, was on the committee. Jim's here, isn't he? Yeah. Jim, I don't recognize you because the picture that your organization, AASHTO, is putting out is your hair is really dark. and I know the past 12 years on the committee between Chairman Young and Chairman Mike, and I can't take much credit for the gray, but I'm sure those guys. But no, Jim Timon is going to add a real strength to your organization, already strong organization. So we're going to miss him on the committee, but he really was a superstar for us, and I'm sure he's going to do the same here at AASHTO. So again, thanks for having me here, and talking to a group like this, I don't need to explain to you the importance of transportation in your states. It's a quality of life issue for our citizens. Do we get to work? Do we get to take our children to school? Whether we recreate, vacation, whatever it is, it's important in that sense, the quality of life. But even more importantly, I believe it's about business. It's really building a strong infrastructure, a strong spine, backbone of the economy is that transportation system, critical to getting the goods to the marketplace, critical to getting the raw materials to the factory floor, and of course those goods out into the marketplace, whether they're into the world markets or whether to the grocery stores that people rely on. And strengthening the transportation system is critical. As I said, I don't have to tell you folks in here, you know absolutely firsthand the challenges that are out there to make sure we're making those investments to keep our economy economically viable, to keep us competitive in the world. And talk about a couple transportation bills we've been working on here. But anytime I look at a transportation infrastructure bill, it's a jobs bill to me. And it's certainly construction jobs. Those are good jobs. But when I'm talking about jobs, and as I talk to other members of Congress, it's about the jobs that keep, as I mentioned, our manufacturers competitive in the world economy. It's about making sure that those products getting to our stores that our American citizens are buying are getting there as efficiently as possible, so they don't spend more money on them. They can put that money in their pocket and invest it in other things in their lives that are important. And it's also it's key, I think, for me to say this, and hopefully you folks will be echoing this out there. There is a role for government. This is one of the few roles for the federal government is in the transportation and infrastructure system of the country. Starting from the beginning of our nation, the Articles of Confederation, big reason they failed was a transportation issue right up the road here, or up the river here, I should say. The Potomac River, Maryland and Virginia couldn't come together on a treaty to navigate the Potomac to get to western Pennsylvania and then into the Ohio Territory. And they came out of those failed negotiations. They realized Articles of Confederation weren't going to get it done. It wasn't going to connect us. It wasn't going to allow us to be an economic engine that we needed to be, produce the commerce to propel this nation forward. So in that Constitutional Convention, as they changed it, Article 1, Section 8 is pretty clear to me. It's not clear to some of my colleagues, and I hope you help me educate them. That it talks about the federal roles, and the federal role is to common defense is our #1 priority in the federal government. Promoting commerce and establishing post roads is in there, and the post roads of 220 years ago, 230 years ago, are today the highway system that connects us, that physically connects us. And if you look throughout our history, obviously from the Transcontinental Railroad to the Panama Canal to the interstate highway system, the federal government had a significant role in making sure those things move forward. And as President Eisenhower observed, the unifying force of transportation, without the unifying force of transportation, we would just be a mere alliance of separate parts. So our transportation system physically connects us, and we need to make sure that we're working and doing the things that we need to do to keep that connection, to make sure it's efficient, and safe for the traveling public as well as commerce in this country. To update you on what we're doing on the T&I Committee, the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, is first and foremost, we passed a Water Resources and Development Act. I should say Water Resources Reform and Development Act. We added an R to it because there were significant reforms in there, which I thought was absolutely critical. And as we brought in the stakeholders and talked to our members, Republicans and Democrats, there were times in these roundtable discussions when if I closed my eyes, I couldn't tell if it was a Democrat or Republican calling for reform. Because my colleagues on both sides of the aisle realize that there needs to be reform when it comes to the Corps to get these projects that can take as much as 15 years. And you folks know it on highway projects too. It takes too darn long to get these done. So we were able to put significant policy reforms in the water bill. We were able to make sure it was fiscally responsible, making sure that if we were going to authorize projects, that we would deauthorize projects that have been on the books forever, that shouldn't be there, that aren't moving forward, get those out of the way. And I believe in the long run it improves competitiveness for our ports, for inland waterways, making sure that those products get to market, as I mentioned earlier, and creating those jobs that we need. One of the numbers is we had stakeholder meetings that I continued. I actually just met with a group of farmers from my district and talked about this number again today, that the soybean producers came, their association came before us, and they told me that it cost us in America $85 to move a ton of soybean from Davenport, Iowa to somewhere in China. It takes the Brazilians, which are our #1 competitor in the world when it comes to soybeans, it takes them to move that same ton, that same distance, $141. And the main reason is because the Brazilians do not have an inland waterway system. They take it from the truck or train to the port, and then it goes, so it costs them more money. But several years ago, they've announced they're going to put billions of dollars into creating an inland waterway system because they have the rivers, they have those natural rivers that need to be dredged, and to figure out how to utilize that and lower their costs. The Chinese have also said they're going to invest in the Brazilian transportation water system. So, while we're sitting here arguing about making these investments and actually not making these investments, the Brazilians are going to lower their costs, and every year, because of our antiquated system and not making those investments, it's going to cost us more money to produce. So next year it'll cost 86, and then 88, and then 90, while the Brazilians will make those investments and drive that number down. So we'll lose that competitive advantage. And of course, soybeans is not the only thing. It's all the commodities. It's anything we move around this country into world economy. So again, water resources is, we're in conference. It passed the House. I can tell folks, you folks here, because most of you either know of or have worked with my father. So I got 417 votes. And we never expected to get that many. We kind of pinched ourselves when we actually went above 350 and on to 400. So I congratulated the staff, said great job, and I said the first thing I said to him was, find out what my father's last water bill would have passed by. Because that was the next phone call I was going to make. But as it might have it, he got 418 on his last time. So I'm still trying to live up to that example, a very good example. But still, he did get 5 votes against him. I only got 3. So I take a very, very small victory out of that. But as we've moved now into the conference with Senator Boxer and Senator Vitter, Nick Joe Rahal from West Virginia, I've got to tell you, he's been a tremendous partner in this. When we go in to negotiate with our counterparts in the Senate, sometimes Nick and I don't have a whole lot of opportunity to talk about where we're going, but we both have a general idea, but we're both on the same page. So it's been fantastic when I start to go back and forth with my counterparts, and Nick just chimes in and he counterpunches to perfection. Sometimes I think somebody gave him my script to help with the negotiations, but he's been a great partner for me, and we are moving forward. Early on, there's been some reports that it was slow going. It was. Some reports that the House said we weren't negotiating in good faith, or they made other derogatory remarks about us. And I realized, this is my first conference that I've been the principal. I've been the main negotiator. I've been in a number of conferences, but again, not the principal. So when I started reading these accounts, it started to dawn on me that when they said the House didn't do this or won't do that or slow walking this, I realized that Senate speak for the House isn't doing what the Senate wants, which is a lot of problems are caused by that here in Washington. But I'm happy to say We've crossed a number of hurdles. Senator Boxer, Senator Vitter have really been good to work with. We're making great progress. It's still a little slow going because we've got some issues that we need to resolve, but I'm confident we're going to be in the coming weeks getting to that where we can bring a WORDA bill back to the House and get tremendous support for it, making sure we're maintaining those principles that we laid out about fiscally responsible, reform-minded, and most important, one of the most important things to me was not give up Congress's congressional authority to the executive branch. That's gone on for far too long, and Congress many times, and especially when there's an emergency in the country, we just allow the executive branch to take our constitutional authority and we give it to them. So again, that's something that I was very passionate about, and so far we've been able to maintain that, and we'll continue to work with that. We are working on a passenger rail bill, Reform Act. Chairman Denham, chairman of the subcommittee on railroads, has been very, very active and working very, very hard on it. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, and really have a real focus on the Northeast Corridor because that's the only train tracks we own in this country. So it makes sense to do that for that reason. It also makes sense. It's the most congested part of the U.S. The United States is in that Northeast Corridor. We've got 18–19% of our population on 3% of our land mass. We can't build 2 more lanes on 995. We've really got to figure out how to move people more efficiently on that rail system that we own. And I started on this when I was the chairman a couple years ago, starting to look into this. How do we do this? And when he talked to some of the private operators around the world that operate trains for governments, they've said that the Northeast Corridor, which has about 11 million people, on its way to 12 million people a year, they said it should be double or triple that in size. So the number of passengers it carries. So again, we've been working very hard on that, making sure we're trying to bring the private sector to the table. The private sector is interested in it, but they want to make sure that if they're going to put their dollars in it, that they're used effectively and they're going to have some kind of a payback. And I often tell people I really should be the poster child for passenger rail, because I remember years ago when I was in my 20s and thought I knew a lot, I said to my father, I said, I'm never going to ride on a train. I'm going to be in my car because I want my freedom. And you know, he sort of scoffed at me. And now today, every time I talk about Northeast Corridor, and I've changed my tune. But I don't go to Philadelphia. I'm going to Philadelphia on Friday. I'll get on Amtrak in Washington, D.C., because there's no way I want to drive into Philadelphia in that traffic, or for that matter, drive out of Washington in the traffic. And additionally, my district is very close to Harrisburg, and I looked at what Pennsylvania did with Amtrak. They invested, between the two of them, about $200 million to upgrade the track from Harrisburg to Philadelphia about 6 or 7 years ago. And the payoff there has been ridership's up about 70–75% over that time. And I'm one of those riders. I go there, I get dropped off, I park my car, and I take the train from Harrisburg to Philadelphia. So again, there's a model out there to improve passenger rail. I also think that, you know, if states want to see this come, they're going to have to be at the table, I think. And there are a number of states that I know are talking about it. But for me, that's important that we're looking at passenger rail and where it makes sense to really focus on and get it. And we should just get it right first in the Northeast Corridor, because we own it, because the congestion's there. We can learn a tremendous amount. But as I look around the country, there's other corridors. I look to Texas. And Texas, that Austin, Houston, Dallas, that whole section of Texas, is the growth there is tremendous. And again, at some point, they're going to say we can't build roads anymore. We've got neighborhoods that are growing up around the 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 lanes, whatever they have down there. So again, passenger rail is something we're focused on. The surface transportation reauthorization, it expires in September. My hope is we'll get a bill done, mark it up sometime this spring, early summer, get it to the floor so we're ready to try to conference with the Senate. I understand Senator Boxer spoke yesterday. She and I, when we weren't hashing out WORDA, we were talking about the next surface bill, and I believe she's committed to trying to mark something up mid to late spring. So again, we're both been holding hearings and talking to stakeholders, and I got to tell you, it's really lucky for me, I believe, that I had the WORDA bill first, because I learned a tremendous amount of how to put something together. And you start, I think, with talking to the stakeholders, which we've been doing now in the surface bill for the last couple of months. talking to them. Had a big roundtable yesterday with both Democrats and Republicans with some of the stakeholders. So bringing them to the table so we can hear their ideas. Making sure we're educating our members. About half the members of the House have only been here less than 3 terms. So they saw the last MAP 21, which had tremendous reforms in it, but really the length of it, I think that all of you would agree, wasn't long enough. You need to have a longer year bill to give you that certainty you need. And so I think educating our members to what we're doing. We had yesterday in the roundtable one of our sophomore members, a member of the committee, he said before he got to Congress, he didn't realize there was a highway trust fund. And now he knows all about the highway trust fund, and he's very much an advocate for figuring out how do we fix it, how do we do the right thing. So, that's what I believe a lot of our members still don't have a full understanding of the highway program and how it's funded and what the situation it's in. But that's becoming more and more apparent. They know that there's problems in their states. They know that Pennsylvania, for instance, we were going to limit the weight on bridges, and our state legislature was able to figure out what they needed to do to make sure the funding was there, to reduce congestion, make sure the bridges are safe, and rebuild the roads that are necessary to be rebuilt and expand capacity where it's necessary. So as we move forward, again, this is another, for me, it's a jobs bill. And certainly the construction jobs are good, but making sure commerce is flowing, making sure people are getting where they need to efficiently and safely is important. It's going to be built around a few principles that are important to me and are important to my colleagues in the House, and making sure we're fiscally responsible in putting this bill forward, that it's not deficit spending, making sure that we build on those reforms in MAP 21. The bill has only been in place 18 months, I guess, or so. Some of those reforms, they're still haven't come out yet. They're still not implemented. Some I've got my concerns about that they're not going to be implemented or come out the way that we intended them to. So we're looking very closely. The chairman of the subcommittee, Petri, has held a number of hearings on MAP 21, the implementation. So we're going to find out as we move forward what we need to do to strengthen our language, change, tighten up, do whatever we have to make sure that those reforms are in place. Because as I go around the country, and I think there's pretty much agreement that those reforms are pretty good, pretty solid. They're going to help if they're implemented in the right way. So again, we're going to make sure that we're doing that. Focusing on freight mobility, I think, is really important. As we heard yesterday from a number of folks, that there are corridors in this country we really need to focus on, because that's where 70, 80, 90% of the commerce comes through. And if there are bottlenecks, again, that's inefficiencies and things that we need to address. So that's one of the reasons. Last year, we set up a special panel to deal with the movement of freight in this country, chaired by Chairman Duncan, who for 6 months they went out with he and 10 or 11 members, both Democrats and Republicans, and went around the country and had held hearings and roundtables and came up with some good recommendations for us to put into a surface bill as we move forward. So again, that was helpful to us. And now this year we've set up. Chairman Duncan is going to head this panel also on 3 public-private partnerships, and bringing in different states, bringing in the stakeholders. I know there's a number of states out there that have done really fantastic work, and trying to learn from them, trying to take that and put it in the bill, trying to replicate that, so that we can move forward with different ideas that work. Another part of the bill that we're going to be is going to be fundamental, I think, to the bill is innovation and technology. How do we make our roads smarter, safer through that technology? I had the great experience with the Secretary of Transportation of Pennsylvania, Barry Shoke, and I got to ride in the driverless vehicle from the suburbs of Pittsburgh, 33 miles to the Pittsburgh airport. And at first, it was a little bit white-knuckled. I don't know if any of you have done it. But the guy gets in the car there's a guy behind the wheel, but he starts it up, puts it in gear, and just folds his hands in his lap. And we drove 33 miles, about a mile and 3/4, with several lights in a very retail, commercial area. The first couple of lights, I was going for the dashboard, as I expected to have impact. But it was absolutely amazing. We stopped at the lights. We got on a secondary road, then onto an interstate, and traveled 60 miles an hour. The only time that he had to take hold of the wheel was, most people, when I tell them this, they go, yeah, of course it is, was because of the media. and for those of you in the media, I didn't mean no disrespect, but there were a couple of camera crews following us, and it was in a 3-lane highway, and we got behind a slow-moving truck. We were in the far lane, and every time the car tried to move over, these camera cars, these guys were hanging out the window, taking our shot. And so the car would come over to, so the car was danger. It would see there was some danger, so it would stay in its lane. So after a couple of minutes of that, he looked at me and said, look, you want to pass this truck, or I got to put my hands on the wheel. So he passed the truck, and then we completed, and he stopped at the Pittsburgh airport, literally 10 feet from where we were having a press conference, talk about sticking a landing. I had opened the door, and it was like 5 steps to the podium. So it really is a tremendous technology. Secretary Shoke, he was marveled at the fact that it kept its distance at different rates of speed, and the size of our vehicle took into calculation. And for him, as he marveled several times, I said, why is that so important? He said, that's the #1 reason accidents occur, is people get too close. They don't keep their distance. So from a safety standpoint, this is going to be amazing for us. Pennsylvania is, Carnegie Mellon was one of the developers of that car, but they have contracted with Carnegie Mellon to do a study over the next 3 years for Pennsylvania as to what are roads going to look like in the future. And I think in this bill, we've got what we do in this bill, and it's a multi-year bill. Whatever we do in this bill is going to determine, as we build roads over the next 4, 5, 6, 10 years, do we get our roads prepared, whether it's different materials, different types of things on the side to be able to take technology when it comes, so we don't have to rebuild the road, which would cost us a heck of a lot more money. So I think looking to the future as to whether it's smart lights, signal lights, or again, like I said, different reflective material on the lines, or what do you put into the roadbed to just make things easier. And I have no idea myself of any of this. I just know that that it's we're going to have to take a look at that, because whatever we build 5, 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, when these cars come into the marketplace, we need to make sure that those cars can be accepted and the technology can be utilized to its fullest extent. So that's, again, as we move forward, those are some of the things we're really focusing on. Finally, to you folks, to say, I can't do this alone. I've got to have the stakeholders. You obviously huge stakeholders in all this. I need your input. I need your help to be able to make sure we're communicating to American people, to the folks that live in your states, the importance of this. I know that Pennsylvania has gone through a process of doing that, and I know many states in here have done that. I would encourage you to, first of all, let us know how have you done that. Continue to do it, because again, we're going to need that grassroots push to do this, and then to help us educate our members of Congress. And so whatever you've done, if you've been able to figure out the revenue, or you've done reforms, those are things we want to see. But as we move forward, I'd really like the states to provide us, a committee, with each state a list, 2 lists. One list that says if the federal government doesn't do its part in this, this is not going to get done. These projects, these transportation bottlenecks won't get solved. If the federal government does do its part, these things will get done. So as I'm talking to the different delegations, I'm able to point directly to say, I, X, and road, bridge, Y, they're not going to happen in your state unless we figure out how to do this. So again, I ask for your assistance in that. And again, I haven't talked about the funding piece. I'm not ignoring it. It's obviously, that's a huge challenge for us. Yesterday, Chairman Camp on the Ways and Means Committee, he and I have been talking for the past couple of months. He told me months ago he was committed to trying to figure out how to at least make the trust fund whole, and his discussion, tax reform discussion proposal that he's put out there, he has put some $126 billion, which appears it'll fill that hole in the trust fund for several years. We're taking a close look at it to really figure out. It's going to take us some time to fully understand it. So I'm encouraged very much by what Chairman Camp's doing on the Ways and Means Committee, and of course that's the jurisdiction lies in that committee. And also the President gave a major speech yesterday, so we were encouraged by some of the things the President said. So again, the American people need to start to hear those things from you, from the President, from other leaders to know that we've got we've got to figure out how to do this, to make these investments to keep our country competitive. So again, I thank you very much for having me here today. I look forward to working with you, and again, can't say it strongly enough. I really, really need your help as we try to move this forward and get ourselves a multi-year bill that's paid for, reform-driven, and looks to the future, not dwelling in the past. So again, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.